Welcome back! So a third of your carbon footprint comes from your home, and trying to reduce your household energy consumption is a great step towards sustainability. But have you looked at anything else in your home? We spend 90% of our day indoors, so consideration should also be given to our furniture. Today, we're going to talk about sustainable furniture with Christopher from Civil, a company that makes furniture with a carbon neutral footprint. Thank you so much for joining us, Christopher. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with a little bit about your background and ultimately what sustainability means to you.
I'm Norwegian, and I grew up in a country and in a family where sustainability has been very high on the agenda since the day I was born. Norway has kind of been leading the way in terms of sustainability when it comes to clean energy, when it comes to clean raw materials, steel, wood, what be it, and also outside of the Norwegian borders. So I think the average Norwegian has a pretty high awareness of sustainability.
So how did you apply that value to your company, Civil? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So Civil is a Scandinavian design brand with the furniture. We're based in New York and very much built up on my Scandinavian roots and the values I brought from Scandinavia. Not only when it comes to the aesthetics, the design itself, but also when it comes to how we run our business. That we have definitely a strong Scandinavian design focus, but we also really think about how is our actions impacting the people we interact with, our community, our suppliers, our customers, and also our planet, which is what we're talking about today. How can we contribute to minimize our carbon footprint?
And you guys have a carbon neutral footprint, is that correct?
We do, because I have a strong belief that it's important to make sustainability tangible. Global warming is too big of a challenge to leave to chance, is what we thought. So we have all these decisions we make every day that impacts our carbon footprint. It's a lot of choice that goes into that. So we thought that we can have great intentions and say that as a company we want to do the things that are good for the planet. But we wanted to take it one step further and said that every piece of furniture you buy from Civil is carbon neutral.
So what's it like? I mean, let's start with sourcing. How do you find the materials?
So we take a kind of a holistic view, it's a 360-degree view, as we call it, because one thing is the materials, and I think is what comes to mind the first when people think about sustainability. Are you using certified wood? Yes, we only work with FSC certified wood. And today that's easy to get access to. People ask about the leather, what is the footprint of the leather? They ask about the fabrics we work with. They ask about the steel. But for us, it's also much broader. And I'm going to get back to that soon in terms of the technical design, the innovation that goes into making furniture that ships easily, to minimize the transportation footprint, which is still very much outside of our control. How we can make furniture that lasts, that adapts with people. So for us, sustainability is much more than materials. But materials is the beginning and the end of very much of it, because it's the beginning of the life of the sofa. And at some point, if that sofa is going to go, it also means how can it be decomposed. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we use the best possible materials and work with suppliers that respect our requirements.
And how does this mission of yours to be carbon neutral affect your cost? You say it's an attractive price point. For me, what's it like for you guys?
It does impact cost to a certain extent. The cost of materials, not so much, because there's been an increasing demand for sustainable materials, meaning that the prices has come down. If you go only 10 years back in time, it was quite expensive to get FSC certified wood. It's still a premium, but not as much as it used to be. Access to sustainable leather has become much better, and also the quality has become much better. So that's not the biggest cost driver. The difference is the time that we have to invest in finding the right suppliers, in finding the right materials. So you can say the product cost, the production cost, isn't much higher by doing it the right way, but the lead time of getting a product to the market is definitely longer. So it is an investment, and again, based on our philosophy that we want to bring great furniture to more people at a good price point, we're not able to pass that on to the customers. It's basically a conscious decision we make as a company that, for us, this is important enough to take it out of our bottom line.
Do you find that there's an interest in Civil based on the carbon neutral aspect, based on a desire for sustainability, or is it more your beautiful Scandinavian design?
I think we have two kind of consumers or customers. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the end consumer. You need a new sofa, and you go to civil.com and you find a sofa you like and you order it.
Right.
And then it's the design professionals, so the architects and the interior designers we do a lot of work with. Mm-hmm. I think for the end consumer, design, quality, and price are still the most important factors. And then we see an increasing interest in sustainability. So if it's kind of a tie between two brands, two sofas, they might choose our sofa because we also have that aspect. Mm-hmm. They know it's carbon neutral. And there's part of education in that. So we have a long-term perspective. It's not about, the next year or next 2 or 3 years. We're pushing this hard now because we know that in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, consumers will be a lot more interested and informed. So basically it will be a requirement, and we will be ahead of the curve instead of behind it. And then we have the design professionals who really care about sustainability. They care about the environment, and they have big influence because they work with clients from all over New York City or LA or Miami or where be it. And they basically make the decisions on behalf of their customers. Mm-hmm. Since they work with furniture every day and design every day, they're very informed. We find very informed. They ask a lot of questions, and they help push us to become even better.
So you mentioned there's more to sustainability than the materials, right? Even though maybe my brain goes straight there. There's flexibility and longevity, reusing, keeping your furniture through all of your moves. I think your sort of slogan is furniture for urban nomads, which exactly. I love. So how do you go about providing furniture for urban nomads?
So more people than ever live in cities. In 2050, 70% of the world's population will live in cities. And we move more than ever. I came to New York 10 years ago, and I moved 5 times. So that's an average every 2 years.
Yes, it's normal.
And I think it is. It's not only me. And what that means is for a lot of people, they don't want to invest in something that might not be of use 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 5 years from now, which leads to a lot of people buying disposable furniture. It's a cheap couch that they can use for a couple of years until they move into a new home and can buy something nicer. Mm-hmm. So what we try to do is to take kind of that out of the equation, to give people the peace of mind that you invest in a piece of furniture and it grows with you, it evolves with you into wherever you might be in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years from now. If you're still in New York, or maybe you live in LA, or maybe you transfer to another continent, who knows? And we built that into our design process because typically there's a compromise. Historically, there's been a compromise sometimes on sustainability and quality, or what is perceived aesthetically appealing. And there's also been the same perception of trade-off in terms of modularity and flexibility and aesthetics. So we spend a lot of time on innovation and research that goes into how can we make beautiful furniture that's also flexible, so that people will want to keep it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years instead of replacing it. And the interesting thing is that buying one quality piece of furniture one time is actually also cheaper than buying 5 sofas over 10 or 15 years.
It totally is true.
And every day you can enjoy the comfort of a luxury product. So for us, it's kind of, it's a bigger story to it, but it really starts with our product development and the innovation and technical engineering that goes into that. And it's something we spend a lot of time on. So that's one aspect in terms of modularity. And then we have the aspect in terms of moving, because as you also know, if you live in a five-floor walk-up in Soho or somewhere else, without the elevator,
yes,
it's a nightmare to bring that couch up.
Yes, it sure is.
The bookcase or whatever.
Right.
So we also build that into our engineering process. How can we make furniture that is easy to mount, but also easy to take apart? So that after 2 years, when you need to move, you don't have 80 or 100-inch sofa that you need to try to maneuver down the hallway on a humid July day in New York. You can move it in 3 pieces.
Wow.
And the engineering behind it is very smart. So, it takes you 10-15 minutes to take it apart and the same to assemble it again.
Wow.
So we're trying to think about kind of every part of the process, from the first time you see it as it's visually, aesthetically appealing, and to the price point, but also how we're going to live with your piece of furniture.
Right.
So we think about it as, furniture for now, furniture for life, in a way.
That sounds amazing. I've definitely moved a couch down a windy staircase one too many times here in New York.
I think a lot of us have. And also, you move from one apartment to another, and you have a right-facing chaise. In the next apartment, that chaise is going to be in front of the door.
Right.
So we also build in the flexibility, so you can actually move very easily the chaise from the left side to the right side. You can extend with another seat. If you move from a studio to 1 bedroom, you can add another seat. You move to a house in the suburbs maybe someday, and you can add another seat. So it's really it's really thinking it into every step of the process.
So clever. That is amazing. You've been featured in several furniture reviews as a top sustainable design brand. So that must feel great to be recognized and rewarded for your work.
It does. And I think, one thing is the recognition. I think another thing, which is even more important, is it helps to bring more awareness.
Awareness, exactly.
Because that's really, I think, the biggest challenge we see now is we believe very strongly in what we do. And we think we have found some smart ways of doing things that are also good for the planet. But we have a huge job in kind of educating the broader population and letting people know what impact their purchasing decisions have on the carbon footprint.
Yeah.
So obviously, to have press also putting focus on this is very helpful. So that's something we appreciate, and we work closely with press to make sure that it's not only about the product. If they feature one of our products, it's also about the story behind the product, which is equally or even more important.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So let's just close off with maybe one of your favorite tips, a great tip that you can leave us with for people who are interested in practicing a sustainable lifestyle.
So I think the most important is consciousness. I think, increased consciousness. Again, we have so many decisions to make every day that impacts our carbon footprint. From the morning, how do we get to work? Do we get on a city bike, or do we take a Via? At work, do we recycle that coffee cup, or do we put it in the trash?
Right.
Do we do that business meeting over Skype, or do we get on a plane and spend a ton of carbon emissions flying to London and back?
Yeah.
So all these decisions we have to make every day. And I think, just stopping up and asking, how does this impact my carbon footprint is the most important thing people can do, because we already take so many things into consideration when we make decisions. The price, the time, the availability, the quality, all these things. If we can add one thing to that, which is the carbon footprint, I think we have come a very long way. And we're going to have to be conscious about it in the beginning and think about it. But eventually, one day, it just becomes part of how we make decisions. And you don't buy anything without thinking or knowing the price, do you? Right? So it's kind of it's unthinkable to buy anything without knowing the price. If we can get to a point where the carbon footprint of whatever decision we make is at top of mind, we're going to start seeing some big changes.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you're totally a trailblazer on that front and leading the way for people furnishing their homes, adding one more thing to think about. It's really amazing. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for having me.